Hello again, guys. How are you doing? Well, it's time for the big one. Today, I'm going to show you my entire LEGO Clone Trooper minifigure army. Yes, sir. I've had LEGO Star Wars stuff for a long time now, but since those custom figures from AliExpress have been popping off within the last year or so, my collection, well, pretty much exploded, to the point where I have an entire army of them now. I like collecting clone troopers because they aren't all one style or color. Each Legion, each Jedi, have their own unique look for their clone boys, which I find really cool. And in this little collection that I have here, not only will you see a bunch of different clone groups, but you're also going to see different versions of the same type of figure in those clone groups. You know what I mean? And there are going to be some clones here that don't look up to par. In my past videos, I've only shown you the good stuff. But today, you're going to see everything. You're going to see a range of quality among real LEGO clone troopers, knockoffs, and customs. But I like it. It gives the army some dimension and diversity, if you will. If they were all carbon copies of each other, I would find that visually boring. Now, as I was writing this, I made a very fortunate discovery. In the process of moving and unpacking some of my older stuff, just so happened to have found my old collection of LEGO minifigures from my high school days. This includes not only regular live-action clone troopers, but also the original Clone Wars style figures too. And so I'll also be going over that stuff as we go on. And so, because I'm a weirdo, I do have some rules regarding what I buy and what I make in this collection. I say rules because they're really just limits. The clones in my collection must be from at least one of the following sources: movies, TV shows, video games, comic books, books, or Hasbro action figures. And they can be from either Legends or canon alike. I like to mix them up. But basically, they need to exist in some form or another from something, or else I no buy. An example of this is, well, you could buy on AliExpress, or where have you, a Wolfpack Airborne Clone Trooper or an ARC Trooper from Doom's unit, or even a Medic from the 442nd. These I will not touch, and I do this for two reasons. One, I used to collect the action figures back when I was younger, and I sort of consider this a smaller, condensed, and very much cheaper version of that. And two, I gotta stop somewhere. I need to limit myself for the sake of my wallet. As cool as some of these figs are, it's just not for me. I also aim for a more realistic looking clone trooper versus a stylized one from either of the Clone Wars shows, with some exception of course. For instance, you remember the original Phase 2 clone trooper helmet? That big, bulky bucket head thing? Well, while that is all cool and stuff, and you do have to respect the originals, I aim to not have that look in my collection. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that design is based off the original Clone Wars show. But never mind that, now that we know the rules, let's begin. Coincidentally, we are starting off with the first clone troopers that we see in all of Star Wars. The regular Phase 1 white armor clone boys and their officers that we see all the way back in Episode 2. Starting with the officers, most of them came from the Attack of the Clone sets of the mid-2010s. We have commanders, captains, and sergeants. No blue lieutenants yet, but maybe someday. However, there are two clones here who aren't from that wave of sets. This commander in yellow is actually from the UCS Republic gunship set and came with Mace Windu. And since we now know that the clone that speaks to Mace Windu in the movie was Commander Pons, I dubbed this guy Commander Pons, the first named clone trooper in chronology. At least that's what I think. And as you might see, one of my captains in red has a Clone Army Customs helmet. Since I got him from AliExpress, I had to replace his original cursed helmet because it just looked awful. And thus, he is Jango Tat from the Cestus Deception novel. He's the guy that, while on Ord Cestus with Kit Fisto and Obi-Wan Kenobi, he falls in love with an old fling of Jango Fett's and makes a baby with her. Ooh yeah. And here we have my regular Phase 1 white clone troopers. I have a few legit LEGO ones, and the rest are from AliExpress or wherever, with one exception. I found one of my older white clones with the bulky helmet, and I simply replaced it with a Clone Army Customs Phase 1 helmet. Those AliExpress ones come in two flavors, it seems. Either with a slightly lighter visor or just a thicker visor. Which, by the way, unless I say otherwise, most of these clones are all from AliExpress. But admittedly, they don't look the best. But they are fine for what they are, and damn cheap too. Put them in the background behind Rex or in a battle, and it looks perfect. Nice filler clones. And of course, can't forget the pilot. Next up, we have my Phase 1 500 First Boys, led by a custom Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and a spare Mace Windu that I just don't know where to put. But Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, I got from the website American Brick Store. Rex and Fives came from an ARC Trooper bundle from another seller called Jay's Little Things. Both these sellers have some really cool stuff. Rex in a realistic style always looks dope, although I'm not too hot on Fives. His armor never looks like that with his Phase 1 helmet. But if I could find a body for him from the Kamino Defense episode, then we'd be all set. I also have 10 500 Ferris clones, also from Jay's Little Things, but slightly modified. That was a process and a half, involving getting 10 copies of another character for spare parts, but I am quite pleased with the results. How I did that could be a topic for another video. But we do see these guys in live action in the Ahsoka flashback. Their blue striping much darker than a lieutenant's, which is a very, very good detail. By the way, have you ever noticed that the clones in that scene, their armor looks a little off? That's because in these shows, they actually have costumed extras play the clones instead of CGI, like in the prequels. In real life, the helmets need to be larger to fit a human head. But yeah, I like the Phase 1 Division clones because their markings are usually just a stripe down the helmet and arms, which is basic, yet it's that simplicity that really makes the color pop out more. Damn, I wish I had the 212 guys, but never say never. However, I do have a Phase 1 Wolf with the Season 3 look, which is also from American Brick Store. We never really see this version a lot. In fact, we usually see the first helmet design in a lot of Wolf art and customs, but I like this version with the darker colors. It looks cooler to me, in a more badass way than if the helmet was in a lighter color. Now this is where I show you the Special Forces guys, starting with the ARC Troopers. You all know Fordo from the old Clone Wars show, both his Phase 1 and 2 appearance, but this guy in blue is even more badass than he. This is my Phase 1 and 2 Alpha 17. This guy was from the Republic comics, who also did a Battle of Kamino storyline in Legends. Originally, the clone army was just made up of regular clones and commandos, obedient and all. But when Kamino was attacked, they dug out the ARC Troopers to save the day. ARCs, or Advanced Recon Commandos, are the special forces of the clone army. They have more individuality and can be nasty. Alpha 17 is the arc that follows Anakin and Obi-Wan throughout the war, and he's a mean son of a bitch. When he and Obi-Wan are captured by Ventress on Rat Attack, he's the one that brutally kills the guards in order to survive. He even gets crippled by General Grievous on Boss Pity and still fights. And some of you are, I'm sure, now realizing the similarities between him and Rex. And that's because Alpha was originally going to be the clone serving with Anakin and Ahsoka and fill in that role. However, as many of you might know, the producers realized the alliteration problem that would make. Anakin, Ahsoka, R2, and now Alpha. But yeah, Alpha 17 might just be my favorite clone trooper character in all of Star Wars. Next we have the Rancor Battalion ARC Troopers. We have Colt, Havoc, Blitz, and Hammer. All four of them are made with a myriad of different parts. Main body from, of course, AliExpress. The backpacks I got from multiple ARC Trooper 5s from the same site. Pauldrons and camas from the Cape Cantina. And helmets from Clone Army Customs. Probably my most expensive clone squad here, but I cannot deny that it was worth it. There's a lot of good detail in these figures. Of course, if you zoom in, you'll see that I taped down the ammo pouches in order to keep the damn pauldrons folded right. With cloth this small, it ain't ever easy. And then I have one of the ARC Troopers from the EA Battlefront 2. Past that, I have 9 blue ARC Trooper captains. It was originally 10 from that bundle I mentioned earlier, but I may have damaged one. Oops. And you can't talk about the Special Forces without mentioning the Bad Batch. From the show of the same name, of course. Ironically, the best episodes of that show are when the titular characters aren't even in them. But all the same, we have Hunter, Tech, Echo, Wrecker, and Crosshair. And I'm realizing now I guess I will need to buy a Omega at some point. Last of the special guys here are the Republic Commandos. They are like the inverse of the ARCs. Instead of being highly individual, the Commandos strictly work in squads and are meant to follow orders word for word. That's probably why they're doing what they're doing in the Bad Batch show. But anyways, here's Delta Squad. We got Boss holding a mini kit, Fixer, his second in command, Sev, the marksman, and Scorch, the comical demolitions expert. This is probably the most popular Commando squad, because y'all know them from the Republic Commando game. Someday, I want to figure a way to make their armors more bulky while keeping their backpacks accurate. But for now, this is one of my better looking clone squads in my collection. And next up we have the Omega Squad from the Republic Commando books in Legends. They are the main characters of that series. We have Niner, the leader, Garman, the demolitions expert, Atin, or Atin, I don't know, the tech expert, and Phi, marksman. And to be honest, I am not 100% sure on what they are supposed to look like. This is just an amalgamation of what I found online. I've only read Hard Contact, and in that one they are all just plain white, which I have a squad of. I also heard they are all black covered, which I also have a squad of. The white Commandos can be flexible, at least. You see a ton of them in the Bad Batch. And you also see these guys with the gray markings on Mount Tantus. I think these guys look clean AF in that show. And I also have Voka from the Darth Vader and the Lost Command comic book miniseries. And lastly, we have our boy Gregor. How they were able to cram in all that detail in this one bit of plastic, I'll never know. Here we are with the Clone Wars style minifigures. Here's Rex, both Phase 1 and 2, with 5 regular Phase 1 clones. And starting off with your plain Jane clone trooper here, I've got mixed feelings about them. On one hand, I dig the charm of the design, and I'm very much nostalgic for the time when it was somewhat easy to get a few of these guys in a set or two. On the other hand, I can't stand the exaggerated curves on the torso print, nor the helmet design. The helmet thing goes further than just these figs, however. A design choice was made in the Clone Wars style that removed the black line on the helmets. I think that was a mistake, as that line gives the helmet a dynamic look. Without it, the helmet design just looks off, especially if the clone has a colorful design, like the 501st. Both phases are guilty of this. It's like the helmet is a face without eyebrows. I don't know how else to describe it. But in the handful of times that the clones actually do have the black line in the show, they look clean AF. Okay, never mind that diatribe. The normal white clone troopers are just fine. But looking at Rex here, I'm not minding the style, actually. I think Phase 1 Rex looks good no matter what. It's the helmet, I think. The helmet has a lot going on, with the J guys and the yellow bit on the side. I don't know what the yellow lines are supposed to be, but it pops out well against the blue. I also have the Phase 2 Rex, which is alright, but damn, does it need the helmet? Like, with that level of detail on the helmet and chest, to not have the antenna is just a fundamental flaw and pretty much ruins the figure, almost. I also have here the Clone Wars style Phase 2 501st helmet. The rest of the figure is somewhere, I don't know. But I also have the Phase 2 212th, which you'll see later, and to be honest, I don't like that figure either because I just don't like the Phase 2 Clone Wars style figures at all. The colors are either way too light or just off, and the design, especially on the helmet, just looks cheap. And that definitely goes for our 501st friend right here. But speaking of the 212th, next up are my 212th clones, mainly Cody, 2 Bomb Squad clones, and a Phase 2. I don't have too much to say on Cody, except that it was this, not his Episode 3 counterpart, that got a LEGO figure first. Weird. Funny that LEGO made the Bomb Squad clones from that one single episode that they were in. A little obscure, but nothing wrong with a little obscurity here. Due to the overwhelming amount of orange on them, the helmets are printed on an orange piece, not white like all the other clones. Hence why the white bits on the figure look dull in comparison. And like I mentioned before, I have the Phase 2 212th, and like I said, just look at the color, it just looks off, like too light. I don't know. I don't like it. Now here I have some random miscellaneous clones that I just put together. We have Commanders Gree and Wolf, a Wolfpack clone, a Horn Company clone, an ARF Trooper, and a Gunner and Pilot. And looking at Gree, I am just now remembering my plans for these Clone Wars style clones. I want to deck them out in the Cape Cantina soft goods. Like Gree, I'd get that bandolier thing for him, and for Rex and Wolf, I'd get the rounder style pauldrons and camas. I guess for Wolf, I would just get the comma. I would even get Cody the right color visor thing. But yeah, Gree. I like Phase 1 Gree. I like the green. Green is clean in my book. Speaking of clean, Wolf and his boy here are looking spiffy. The Wolf print on both is quite sharp. Wolf's helmet has that red triangle thing and the yellow lines, which add some good color against that light blue-gray scheme of his. Even the Horn Company clone has that good level of detail too. Although I will admit that I don't dig the top of his helmet. I don't know, it just looks like a sticker to me. The ARF Trooper, you can't screw up. It's just a different helmet on a normal clone. I couldn't tell you if there would even be a difference between the Clone Wars style ARF Trooper and the live-action style. Mostly because there really isn't a live-action version, sort of. You could put this helmet on a normal clone body and you'd be good. Over here is the Gunner. Everyone needs a Clone Trooper Gunner. I don't think LEGO has made a bad clone Gunner yet. The design here is solid. It's really impressive that LEGO was able to separate these similar looking browns and grays and not have it look like a smudged mess. Cool beans. And of course, there's the pilot. Not much to say, except that it's yellowing to shit and back. A sad reality for these older white plastic bits. Lastly, here are my Rancor Battalion guys, made with 2 of those battle packs from way back when. Sir, we have 4 ARC Troopers and 4 ARF Troopers. And as you can see, LEGO decided that the design for the ARC Trooper hammer would be the common design for any ARC Trooper. What a weird decision. Like, this exact character only had one shot in the entire show in which he is in the center frame. There's not much other merch made of this character either, like not even an action figure. But it's a good design, though I got a little creative on the attachments for the helmets of these guys. Backpacks are cool, like it's not a single part, it's a LEGO built backpack. I always prefer when LEGO gets creative with the pieces that they already have versus making a new mold altogether. And the ARC Troopers are cool too. Not a big fan of the maroon, dark red scheme for the arms here, but still, helmets are very slick and clean with that design. Not much to say past that. But it is highly possible that these ARC Troopers might actually be Wolfpack people because of the arm color. But I don't know, so I'm playing it safe by having them here, because it's such an important distinction that people very much care about. For the sake of focusing on the clones, I decided to keep the Clone Wars style Jedi separate because there are quite a bit of them. I know I'm missing some, and I do have the original Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan, but I don't know where. I won't delve too much into these guys, but just look at them. Look at those uncanny, big-ass eyes. I know, the style at the time, but come on, man, like, LEGO eyes should never be that big. Weird. Ugh. But now that that's all done, let's move on to my Phase 2 Clone Troopers. Starting off here with some clone officers that either A, I have nowhere else to put them, and or B, they led white clones in battle, as far as we know. Wilco and Keller I've already talked about. We also, of course, have the Chad Captain Hauser from Bad Batch. Now we have my regular Phase 2 clones, and as you can see, I did some different things here. First, here's the one real Phase 2 guy that I have. I believe they only sold one set with this helmet design, and it came with a mini Juggernaut tank build. But here it is, clean as heck. The helmet really nails the Episode 3 look. While this looks clean, there's something about the new helmet from the 2024 Battle Pack that looks even better to me. I don't know, I think it's the darker looking cheeks. But anyway, now here's what I did for these guys. Got a lot of cheap clone bodies from AliExpress, 12 or so, and combined them with 10 helmets from Jay's Little Things and 2 from Grandpa's Clone Customs. The latter took a long ass time to arrive. I think they're based in the UK. I also have a few of the Riot Shield clones, and some without the shield. If you're just now getting into making a LEGO clone army, get these shield guys from AliExpress. Great Phase 2, get rid of the shield, fill out your army, easy peasy. I also have 2 regular heavy clones. The intention was to use one of them to be Commander Bakara, but the helmet wasn't technically accurate. Now, I have 2 heavy clone troopers from the original Battlefront 2. And of course, lastly, I have a scuffed-looking gunner just vibing in my gunship, as well as 2 Phase 2 pilots. The 501st is the largest part of my little army here, and that wasn't intentional. They just have more named characters and more options out there than the other legions. They aren't even my favorite clone legion, and to be honest, I'm not even sure if I even have one. But I do think the 501st is a little overrated. But that's really the only group that the shows and books and whatever focus on. Main characteritis. But never mind that, here are some named characters. We got Anakin, and we got our main man here, Captain Rex, in his hybrid armor. He's looking spiffy. I'm debating on even getting him proper soft goods, but I don't know. With the default pauldron that this came with, the shape and the silhouette of the figure just feels like Rex, so I'm 50-50. Next are Commanders Vil and Bo, both from the comics, but I based Bo's look from his action figure. Then we have the 2 Appos, one as a sergeant from the Umbara campaign, and the other as a commander during and post Revenge of the Sith. The sergeant version of Appo, I had to buy a Clone Army Customs helmet just for that arrow detail. The helmet that originally came with it had the arrow basically non-existent. Like, look at that. You need a magnifying glass just to see the arrow shape. Now, originally, in Legends, our boy Appo gets nay-nayed by Jedi Master Rowan Shrine on Kashyyyk. Very sad. But it would have looked like this in that story, more or less. I've seen people combine his 2 looks by having the arrow helmet with the pauldron and comic getup. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. We'll see. Of course, you can't have the 501st without some ARC troopers. We have ARCs Echo, Fives, and Jesse. Technically, Echo never got that helmet, so I'm deeply shamed at my ineptitude for inaccuracy. But I ordered the right one from Grandpa's Clone Customs, so bear with me. I got Jesse's helmet at Clone Army Customs because I wanted to make absolutely sure he looked clean. Because Jesse's ARC Trooper helmet looks wickedly badass. Kinda looks like Alpha, doesn't he? The way the back of the helmet is completely solid blue. Lastly, we have the balance of the named 501st clones from the Umbara arc. We have Jesse as a regular clone, Hicks, Hardcase, Tup, and Dogma. You know them, everyone knows them. And now just for the regular 500 first clones, starting with a mix of real minifigs from LEGO and the replicas that I went over in a previous video. Next up are 10 of my custom 500 first clones that I made by combining the spare parts from the Phase 1 clones that I mentioned earlier. I also have 4 of the Clone Wars style 500 first clones. I don't prefer them because of reasons I mentioned prior, but I have them all the same. Then I have a bunch of crappy 500 first clones. You can judge the quality of a figure by their helmet, and as you can probably tell, these are some of the older figures available online. Not a fan, but put them in the background, like way in the background. They can fill up a scene quite nicely. I think my least liked clones here are the classic style guys. I suppose it's a novelty to have an OG clone trooper decked out in 500 first livery, but something about the design here just feels incorrect. Then here are my jet troopers. I have 5 variants going on here. I have the legit ones from LEGO, an identical-ish one, a more realistic version with the larger helmet, crappy ones, and 2 from the OG Battlefront 2. I just love the green visor, just makes them look so elite. And lastly, here are the special units. Got a bunch from that recent battle pack, like the officer, the 2 heavies, and a sniper, which I have next to the airborne clones as they too are snipers. But that is finally it for the 501st. Ooh-wee. Unless of course you count Ahsoka's 332nd clones as part of it, which they technically are. I have an Ahsoka from the Siege of Mandalore arc, as well as Captain Vaughn, who I also covered in a previous video on how I made him. I have the 4 332nd clones from that battle pack that came out recently, although I altered one slightly. I took the clone that was Vaughn, I took his helmet, and I put it on a spare 501st body. Now you can't tell the difference. And I have the extra 332nd clone I made from the extra parts from that video before. I also have more of those older helmet designs, but never mind that, because these Clone Wars style clones look the cleanest. Usually, I don't like the stylized clones, but these are perfect. The accurate colors and design makes it feel like they were pulled right out of the show. I cannot say enough how much I am impressed by these. And speaking of orange clones, this is what I have for the 212th. I have Obi-Wan Kenobi in his Episode 3 look with a Phase 2 Commander Cody, as well as his Imperial look from the Bad Batch. I always felt that Cody looked so much bulkier in live action than in the animation. Like everyone looks all slim and clean in the Clone Wars. Has anyone ever noticed that? But anyway, we also have a Phase 2 Waxer and Boyle, and don't worry about these jank-ass helmets. I have replacements coming in from Grandpa's Clone Customs that are on the way. And here are my regular infantry guys for the 212th. And behold, real LEGO clones from that Octupar droid battle pack from a long time ago. I have 2 types of custom clones here. One just from AliExpress, and another, but with the helmets from GCC, closely resembling the current design by LEGO. Then there's my airborne clones, and 2 of which are, guessed it, actual LEGO. I wonder what this helmet design would have looked like in the animated style, but I guess we'll never know. Now here's a fun legion of clones, the 322nd Star Corps, led by the Blue Mommy herself, Aayla Secura, and our boy, Commander Bly. I'm only partially ashamed of myself, but you remember Bly from my other video, right? Right. Seeing him in the show was cool. What's cooler was how closely they followed his appearances from the comics. From his personality to his tattoo on his cheek. One of my favorite clones to make was Commander Devis. Even as a kid, I loved how decked out he was. And in red, too. And he was originally going to be in Revenge of the Sith, but just didn't make the cut. He has never appeared again since. And no, that red clone from the Purge comic was not him, I'm sorry to say. Same process of making him as making Bly. He is one of my better looking minifigures. You'll see here I have what appears to be 4 regular 327th clones. But no, it's actually 3. The one with the opposite facing pauldron and the non-GCC helmet is Lieutenant Gale, or Gally, or Gaul. I actually don't know how to pronounce his name. He has appeared in the webcomics, like in Reversal of Fortune, and was in the background when Aayla Secura got jumped in the movie. Some of my sources said that his pauldron was facing the other way. Some say that it wasn't facing the other way. So I have it like that to differentiate him from the other clones, and I kept his vanilla helmet. And now we come to the 104th, aka the Wolf Pack. A legion that I definitely need more clones in. We don't have a live-action Plo Koon, but we do have Commander Wolf. The older AliExpress helmet didn't have any holes on the side for the antenna, so I got one from Clone Army Customs. The hole on the side of that one was too tight for the antenna piece, so I used a screwdriver to widen it, and I made the hole way too big and the antenna was loose. So, I glued the thing to the side of the helmet. All things considered, it could have gone a lot worse. And then there's Sergeant Sinker, or, as I want to call him, Sergeant Stinker. He and Boost both have Clone Army custom helmets because the Sinker's AliExpress helmet is way too stretched out, and Boost's just doesn't even exist. So, here you go. I think Comet looks pretty darn clean for an AliExpress guy. The color's a tad bit blue, but that's okay. Then I have two regular Wolfpack clones from Jay's Little Things, in the Clone Wars style, but they came from the show, so I'll allow it this time. Next up is the 41st Elite Corps, led by an absent Luminara Unduli. A huge misconception is that these green guys are led by Yoda because of Revenge of the Sith. Nope, they're hers. Yoda just happened to be chilling with them. I also have here Commander Gree from another video. Next to him is a clone commander that Hasbro made, and according to YouTuber JCC2224, this figure is extremely rare, so I thought to recreate this hard-to-find guy. JCC2224 is a cool YouTuber, and if you like Clone Trooper figures and other action figure-related things, I would say go check him out. I would even say that I was inspired by his many clone videos to have a collection of my own, on a much smaller scale, of course. And while this clone isn't 100% accurate, I think I nailed the look. I used an older LEGO figure that came with the two normal camo clones, two scout clones from some battle packs some time ago. In Revenge of the Sith, you don't actually see the regular camo clones, just the scouts. But I believe they exist in the comics. Definitely appear in EA's Battlefront 2. The green visor is exceptionally slick. I have an AliExpress scout and a regular clone. They fit really well. Definitely could build an army with them. And apparently, and I think this was just recently confirmed in a source book or a game book, but apparently, Depa Balaba's clones were a part of the 41st too. This green version of Grey, I guess, makes sense. I think Depa's clones would be in the same legion as Mace Windu's, because he's her master, but what do I know? I also have the comics version of Grey and Styles. So, here's some fun facts for you. Marvel made a comic series about Kanan that went into his training with Depa Balaba and what happened with him during Order 66. And in that comic, Grey was actually red and was a commander, and his second in command being Captain Styles. And in the beginning of the Bad Batch, they made Grey green, and a captain, no Styles. People were pissed about the change. I think, in some loose continuity way, both stories are correct. Either way, I'm happy. Now we have the 91st, and I don't have any idea who actually leads these clones. Is it Adi Gallia? Stas Ali? Sometimes Mace Windu? Because all three of them are seen at some point with these clones. Maybe Mace has a different division. I say that because Pons was part of the 91st, even though Mace leads the 187th. Does he? I don't know. But anyway, Commander Neo, again, from a previous video. Or is it? Psych! It's actually the real Neo from the old Seleucami set. God, the real version of this figure is sick, especially with the helmet print. And here's a figure that was Neo until recently. Weird how all of them are identical. Then I have a regular 91st clone. Helmet was from GCC. I do say that I want to army build the normal looking clones here. The convenient thing about these regular clones is that they could have the bark strap and they could also not. In the Clone Wars and Battlefront 2, they don't. But in the action figures, they do. Then I have two snipers from Jay's Little Things based on other action figures. And so here we have the 187th Legion. Definitely Mace Windu's clones. I wonder if the Legion was named after the hit song by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, Deep Cover. 187 on an undercover clone. Anyways, you'll see two different versions of this clone trooper design, and there is a reason for that. In the original continuity, Mace Windu's clones were just a purple version of the shock troopers. In fact, a lot of clones were just repaints of already existing designs. However, when they were making the Clone Wars, according to Leland Chi, they did not want to do that. They wanted to have the clones look very much different between legions, which did not change much in universe because those original purple clones were only ever seen in action figures. That was until recently when they appeared in the LEGO Republic tank set for whatever reason. There was definitely a lot of thought put into this fictional army. But it is interesting, going through the history of Clone Trooper appearances, and what kind of armor designs they had. Like, we start off in Attack of the Clones with the simple colors of green, blue, red, and yellow to designate rank. Then, in the material before Revenge of the Sith, we get ARC Troopers, and then we get the Phase 2 stuff, but still being simple. And then even with Revenge of the Sith, all those designs felt like each clone had a specialized role in the army. And the designs to designate legion or battalion were still honed in. Typically, a single color in stripes or triangles on the armor in an orderly way. Then, the Clone Wars comes out and we get all sorts of wild stuff. Much more detailed designs, like Commanders Wolf, Colt, Doom, Thorn, and Captain Keeley to name a few. Compare those newer designs to the ones from Revenge of the Sith. Quite a world of difference, right? But yeah, back to the lean clones. First off, here is Mace Windu himself, and then the clones from the actual tank set. A set that's way overpriced in my opinion, but at least you get some pretty damn cool looking clones. The 2 regulars and an airborne, which is strangely labeled as a commander for some reason. And what I did for these guys is I took 2 of those clone commanders from AliExpress and I just removed the pauldrons. The stretched out helmet look doesn't actually bother me. It kinda looks like it came from a comic book drawn by John Romita Jr. I also have 2 jank-ass clones that are my heavy and airborne. I need to get better helmets for those ASAP because this is most foul. Lastly are the clones we see on Anaxes, the canon version of this legion. I find the AliExpress clones to be pretty much perfect. Flawless even. It's a realistic version of what we saw in the show. So, that's another point in their favor. I am very much quite impressed by these. Next up is the 21st Nova Corps, aka the Galactic Marines, led by a non-existent Ki-Adi-Mundi. This Bakara, like with all my commanders, was made with an AliExpress body and a Clone Army Customs helmet. But I still have yet to get the soft goods from Cape Cantina. Finish it off. Fun fact, if you look in the background in Revenge of the Sith on my Guido, you see multiple different Bakaras. Perhaps an error by the special effects team? Who knows? Then I also have 2 different Galactic Marines, one of them having green eyes. I'm not sure if it's canon, but it looks sick to me. These kind of remind me of Felonius from Shrek. Ah yes, the 442nd Siege Battalion. These guys were meant to appear in Revenge of the Sith, possibly in the Cato Neimoidia scene, but they just didn't make it. A green 212th design, which I actually quite dig. These normal looking ones actually come with macro binoculars, for whatever reason. So it's a win-win. I think every Clone Legion has these with the shitty helmets, so I suppose I shouldn't be so harsh on them because for a while this is just all we had. I avoid the old bulky ass helmets, but for whatever reason I quite like this one. Maybe because I have nostalgia, critic, for the old OG video game in which these guys appeared. And here are my 13th Iron Battalion clones, all 2 of them. These guys follow Jar Tapal and his Padawan Cal Kestis from the Jedi Fallen Order game. And like with many of these figures, the helmet ain't it, Chief. And like with Waxer and Boyle and Echo, I have helmets coming from Grandpa's Clone Customs to replace these warped printed things. And separate from this is the clone commander that Cal sees in a hologram later in the game. And I have him separated because he isn't technically part of the 13th, or at least we're not told he is. He just looks like it. I didn't like how asymmetric the helmet was from AliExpress. It's like the detail on the mouth was a bit too fine for these knockoff companies. So, I had to buy a separate helmet later on. Geez, even the almighty Clone Army Customs can't get it perfect. This design just wasn't meant to be, huh? Side note, big boy question time. Are these even knockoffs if LEGO doesn't make them? Like, what do I call them? You tell me. And here we have Doom's unit, led by that one Jedi that had her brains blown out by Tup. This is the point where the clone legions aren't officially named, so you know we're getting close to the end here. These clones are all badass. Flawless, just like the Anaxes clone. Doom looks like he's ready to kill everyone. They, of course, based him off of Dr. Doom from the Fantastic Four. Oddly enough, this won't be the only Marvel-inspired clone. I've only 2 of his men though, both with riot shields like we see on Ringo Vinda. If I get more of these clones, I would only get as many as we see in that one episode. It would be weird to have 20 of these guys, or 327th or 187th guys, because you never see that many of those clones in their own source material. It would just look weird. Next up are the Kamino Security clones, led by a missing Shock T, and this unnamed commander, captain, officer, person thing. Isn't it strange how this guy doesn't have a name, but he's in much of the promotional material for Clone Wars Season 6? I may be wrong, but I think these are all the same clone designs from AliExpress. But I gave the commander here a Grandpa's Clone Customs helmet with a visor from some rando 212th arc. No wait, his body is a tad bit different. Maybe he's the newer version. I don't know, I'm having a brain fart trying to remember. Wait a minute. These are just grey shock troopers. What the hell, Leland Shi? And speaking of shock troopers, we cap off this video with the Coruscant Guard, aka the shock troopers, aka the narcs of the clone army. Fox and Thorn, based off of Thor, have been shown in a previous video. So here is Commander Thyre. We see him as an LT in the Clone Wars, and in Revenge of the Sith as a normal-looking clone commander. So this look is based off of his action figure. Take a guess of where his soft goods came from. Then, next is Hound, from the Ahsoka arc in Season 5. He had a big dog thing that was used to track her down. There were actually 2 clones that looked like him, so it's lucky that Jay's Little Thing sold these in 2. Last of the officers is this quartermaster guy from the Bad Batch pilot, with a spare pauldron that I had from somewhere. Turns out, lines on top of the quartermaster's helmet are shorter than the normal shock trooper. Oops. And as you can see, I have 3 types of shock trooper and that other ARF trooper Hound guy. These clones are in the older style, Clone Wars style, and the newer style with the stretched helmet. A nice diversity going on here. I think I prefer the Clone Wars style helmet, just barely over the stretched one. I don't know, it's close. Alright guys, as of whenever this video comes out, this is my LEGO clone army. As you saw throughout the video, I do a lot of mixing and matching. It's to the point where I actually have an Excel spreadsheet to organize which goes with what. And while I didn't spend a fortune on these clones, I've spent a lot of brain power organizing them and making them lore accurate. This time, I could have been spending on, investing in the stock market, or finding the cure for cancer, or ending world hunger and stopping war. But instead, I collected a bunch of Chinese plastic Lego dudes. But hey, I made a video out of it for you guys, and I truly hope this entertained and captivated you. Everyone loves clone troopers. And by the way, the main reason why I go to AliExpress and those other stores instead of decaling or printing my own figures is because, my hands are just too shaky. Yeah, that's it. I'm not a cheap bastard or anything. Nope. And if you want to start making your own army, then I have some recommended stores for you. Obviously, AliExpress and WM Minifigures for the bulk of them. The Cape Cantina for their Cape stuff, and for the soft goods that you can't find there, go to Clone Army Customs. And you'll be going there anyway for some of the helmets. And if you want the new LEGO-style helmet for a cheaper price and are extremely patient, then Grandpa's Clone Customs. If you want nicer-looking clones in bulk for possibly a higher fee, Jay's Little Things are great. They offer clones that you can't get anywhere else. And lastly, please check out Etsy. I found a bunch of sellers with their own unique figures. Some of them resell the AliExpress stuff, and they post pictures of the actual product and not a computer-rendered image. One of these sellers is a store called American Brick Store. They're not on Etsy anymore, but they do have a website, and they make other minifigures that also aren't sold anywhere, like these Wolfpack guys. Thank you again so much for watching this. I really do appreciate it. My older videos, I may have used the phrase, please like and subscribe, and for that, I apologize. I won't command you to make this channel successful. Only I can do that. I wish to earn your views and your subscription, not beg for them like a needy kid. And I will continue to try and earn your attention and entertain you the best way I can. If you guys want more LEGO Clone Trooper related stuff, I can talk at you about clones I want to make. I also owe you a How to Make Your Own 501st Army Part 2 for the Phase 1 clones. So many ideas up in the air. I can't wait to work on them. But until then, have a great day. Thank you.
Psych!
You really thought I was done, huh? Don't you see the video length here? We ain't done. No, sir. You see, while I was editing this whole thing, my shipment from Grandpa's Clone Customs finally arrived. I chose to not wait for this to come in when making the video because frankly, I had no idea when these GCC orders come in. It's usually more than a month after the order is placed, but I just didn't know. However, it's here now, and you'd think that I would just re-record all my stuff and replace the footage like a professional, right? Nah, dude, this is me we're talking about. So, how about I just replace the helmets right here and now? I mean, it's just helmets I ordered from GCC, not any figures or anything. So, easy peasy. I mean, look at that. You guys get a collection video and an unboxing video all in one go. How lucky are you? Come on, let's give some clones a makeover/upgrade. Alright, we got Echo, Waxer, Boyle, my 2 Jedi Fallen Order guys, and these 3 figures here that I found with my older stuff. These guys used to have the bulky helmets, so I'm fixing that right now. There was actually 3 of the white ones, not 2, but you already saw one of them in the Phase 1 section of the video. So without further ado, let's swap them. Alright, here we have Echo, who now has his Phase 1.5 helmet fin, so he's nice and accurate. And I guess you can't really screw up straight blue lines on the helmets, but these are still quality pieces, and GCC really does deserve praise for their work here. The coloring perfectly matches the rest of the figure. It looks wonderful. Waxer and Boyle are no longer derpy looking. This design, next to the official 212th clone figure, is such a good match. Very uniform, yet visually distinct. Such fine detail with the tally marks and the Numa symbol. With the 13th Battalion figures here, the difference is night and day. We go from stretched out silliness to clean, bold looking yellows. We go from, hello sir, can I please take out your daughter on a date? To, your wife calls me daddy now, bitch. Very good indeed. Lastly, we have my old clones with these updated and upgraded helmets. Quite the coincidence given what the new battle pack is looking like. I think these 3 clones sort of represent the halfway point between the new set and the really old set from 2007. We got the 07 body, quite literally, and the 2024 looking helmet. How cool is that? So, what do you think, huh? Improvement? Blow up? Waste of time and money? Nah, I like these. Once again, Grandpa's Clone Customs does not disappoint. They got the helmet game nailed. Especially if you dig the newer helmet design with the darker gray cheeks, like I do. It gives the clone helmet some depth, and the dark cheeks do well to contrast against the more vibrant colors. Also, when I talk bad about the time that these things take to ship, please know that that's not a dig directed at GCC. It's just the way it is sometimes with sending things from across the world. It just makes it difficult to know when to expect the goods to come in, is all. Hence, why this part of the video exists. But perhaps this is just proof of the quality of work in these helmet pieces here. And I kind of like that I'm adding this part as an epilogue. I get to share with you some of the process of improving the clones in my collection here. Yeah, no, GCC, you rock. Just please, bring back that Phase 2 yellow Commander helmet. I can use that for a comic book Commander Bly. Please. But yeah, thanks for staying here till the end. Alright now, deuces. For real this time.